Good morning, radio stations. Stand by for commencement of the press briefing from the Office of the Prime Minister for Monday, December 4th. We'll be starting in 60 seconds. Radio stations stand by for commencement in 30 seconds. Ten seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, one and all. Welcome to yet another of the press briefings hosted by the Office of the Prime Minister right here in the press room, 6th floor Financial Centre. I trust everybody had a great weekend, as great as it could be under the new circumstances that we have in Dominica post Hurricane Maria. This morning's press briefing will focus on the Ministry of Social Services, Family and Gender Affairs. As you know, I am Kamala John Baptist Aaron, Press Secretary. We will have several features this morning, inside of the focus on the Ministry of Social Services, Family and Gender Affairs. And we will have an introduction of a new project to be undertaken, led by that ministry. And we have the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Social Services, Family and Gender Affairs to introduce the team and the project. We will also have a brief on the mission and the objective of the World Food Programme. We will also see a brief mission objective by UNICEF, a representative of UNICEF, and then we will hear from the minister responsible for social services, family and gender affairs, Honorable Catherine Daniel. Importantly, the Member of Parliament for the Collyho constituency, and she will give government's policy on the program and the launching of the project, and we will then have closing remarks by the PS. And of course, ladies and gentlemen from the media, we will take your questions then. So without any further ado, let us get this program started, and I will first call on the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Social Services, Family and Gender Affairs, Helen Royer.
Thank you, Mrs. Aaron. President, good morning. I would like to acknowledge the presence of the Honorable Minister for Social Services, Family and Gender Affairs, Honorable Catherine Daniel, our partners from the World Food Programme and UNICEF that are here with us this morning, the media, the listening public. Good morning. I am delighted on behalf of the Honorable Minister for the Social Services, Family and Gender Affairs to welcome you to this national briefing today, which focuses on the launching of a major initiative led by the Government of Dominica in collaboration with the World Food Programme and United Nations Children Fund. In response to the current emergency created by Hurricane Maria, the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, and the World Food Programme received Cabinet's approval to partner with the Ministry of Social Services, Family and Gender Affairs through Social Welfare Division to design and implement a joint emergency cash transfer for the most vulnerable households in Dominica and their children. While these two organizations are distinct in their functions, for the purpose of this joint program, they will be working jointly to provide support, cash support, to our most affected persons. The representatives will give you details on their mission objectives soon. However, it is important to note that this support is a top-up to those already receiving public assistance, while others will stand to benefit. Actually, we're expecting about 25,000 persons, or approximately 8,300 beneficiaries to households to benefit from this program. This indeed is welcoming, as it will augment our current social support networks and help our beneficiaries to be more resilient in this time of crisis. Today's forum will provide the public with the information and sensitize them on the emergency cash transfer and the ministry's plans for continued support to the most vulnerable population. The Honorable Minister will also speak to the commitment and policies of government in ensuring our population remains resilient and survive the devastating effects of Maria. So what is the emergency cash transfer? The emergency cash transfer is a program to assist the most vulnerable households and children in Dominica affected by Hurricane Maria. The persons already receiving public assistance will automatically be included or have been included. Actually, as we speak, we have already deposited the monies and payment will begin today for those who are already on the public assistance program. And also included automatically were the foster children. So the parents of foster children will also be part of this group to receive the cash transfer. The criteria, I think maybe when the representative from UNICEF and World Food come, they will speak to the criteria, because the criteria was done jointly. Actually, we work together with the World Food and UNICEF in setting up the criteria. And I know a lot of persons are still calling and asking why they are not included. So I think when they speak to it, we will speak to the criteria that was set for the support. And when will payment begin? As I said today, those on the most vulnerable will begin. We'll begin with them, and we will continue sending out announcements and letting you know when we start off with the persons that are not on public assistance. All right? The list is being processed as we speak, and as soon as it is finalized, we will inform the public on when the start date is. So at this time, I am very pleased to inform you that the Ministry of Social Services and the Minister, for sure, we are very excited about the program, and we are looking forward for swift implementation of the program. Thank you.
Thank you, P.S. Ray. We now move on to a brief of the mission, and we now call on Mr. Marco Salvo.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Good morning to the listeners. I want to acknowledge first Ms. Catherine Daniel and Ms. Ellen Royer, respectively Minister and Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Social Services, Family and Gender Affairs. And as WFP, as World Food Program, as the UN agencies, we're really pleased to partner and to support the government of Dominica, partnering with UNICEF and other leading UN agencies. And really, our main objective is to ensure that there are people who suffered from Hurricane Maria can find their way through and can recover. So this emergency cash transfer that was introduced by Ms. Royer will help the most vulnerable families to get back to their work, but most importantly, to cover their most pressing needs in terms of access to food and other needs. This is the reason why we're choosing a cash transfer. The cash transfer will be limited, and it's an addition to the existing cash transfer of the government. And it will be for 3 months, and it will go from 240 EC dollars up to $645, depending on the number of children in the household. But I will leave more details to my colleague from UNICEF to describe that. We're very pleased to work with the Ministry of Social Services. In a way, this is it's an innovative way to intervene. We call it a shock responsive social protection, meaning that we are, let's say, utilizing and really expanding what is already existing on the ground, what is existing in a country. And the government of Dominica has already demonstrated the ability to manage a cash transfer in a very efficient way. So there was no point in having a separate system, and that's why we're very pleased to support the government directly, because you already demonstrated that you can really manage very well cash transfers. Our objective is to reach 25,000 people, 8,300 households corresponding, including 6,000 children. We will speak a little bit later about the criteria and how the selection has been done, but the objective is really to reach the people that have been most affected by the Hurricane Maria and are most vulnerable. It's a significant transfer. We are aiming at reaching almost 1/3 of the population, but it's still we have to prioritize, and still we have to reach the most vulnerable across the country. There is, in that respect, though, if I may, Permanent Secretary, I want to recall the emergency hotlines where people can call if there are problems. I will read them out. It's 277-8667 or 285-0989 or 614-3000. And I'm sure this will be available on Facebook page. And my last point is, obviously, as UN agencies, we really depend upon donors, friends that are supporting us, and I would like to acknowledge them. Donors include the government of the US through USAID, the government of the UK through DFID or UK Aid, the Central Emergency Response Fund of the United Nations, the government of Canada, the government of Sweden with SIDA, and some private companies, including MasterCard. With the support, with the cash that those donors are supporting to us, we're really able to support the government of Dominica, and we're really thankful for that. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Salvo from the World Food Programme. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we will have an objective of the mission from a representative of UNICEF. We now call on Mr. Alex Lazowski.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. My name is Alex Lazowski. I work for UNICEF here in Dominica. First of all, let me congratulate the Ministry of Social Services, Gender and Family Affairs for the leadership role in having this emergency cash transfer program being designed, implemented, and up and running as of today. In particularly, I'd like to congratulate the Minister of Social Services and Permanent Secretary for their exquisite leadership and the work on this area. One of the main reasons why UNICEF decided to partner with our colleagues from the WFP in the implementation of this joint emergency cash transfer program with the government of Dominica was that there is significant evidence pointing out that cash in emergencies is a reliable form of support. By utilizing cash, we can act quite quickly and reach the most vulnerable families affected by the hurricane. As my colleagues already spoke about the objective of the program, I'd like to focus a little bit more on the criteria that we designed together with the Ministry of Social Services and the WFP in order to make sure that the most vulnerable of the most vulnerable are reached with this program. As the Permanent Secretary already rightly mentioned, we feel that the beneficiaries of the ongoing public assistance program are some of the most vulnerable citizens of Dominica, and it's correct to assume that they would have been one of the most affected by the hurricane. So a significant component of all the beneficiaries of this program will be the recipients of the PAP, of the Public Assistance Program, so they automatically qualify. However, we felt, having in mind that the impact that this hurricane had, it would be also good to expand this cash program to some of the most vulnerable households. And we worked together with the representatives of the Ministry of Social Services to identify these households. And at this point of time, I'd like to mention the role that all the village councillors and representatives of the villages had in helping us identify these people. As part of the targeting strategy, the ministry and the partners established so-called beneficiary selection committees in each of the village councils that try to identify the most vulnerable households. One of the main criteria that the beneficiary selection committees utilized in identifying these households was the fact that the households have to have lost their livelihoods or have to have lost their main source of income as a direct result of the hurricane. So basically, the head of the household is currently unemployed as a result of the hurricane. But in addition to these main criteria, there were several other criteria that also had to be fulfilled. At least one of the following criteria has to be fulfilled, and that's that the household includes pregnant and or lactating women. The household also includes children and foster children. Also households with persons with disabilities, with persons with severe chronic illness or elderly persons would also be considered vulnerable and taken into consideration. Households headed by elderly persons and single elderly persons would also be considered a vulnerability. And then single mother and single male headed households, women and girls at risk of exploitation or abuse. Large households with a high dependency ratio, households whose houses were severely targeted or destroyed by the hurricane, people who live in collective centers or informal self-settlements, and finally people who live in emergency shelters, emergency rental homes, or with host families. So the total number of beneficiary households that will be included under this program is approximately 8,300 households. And as a representative of UNICEF, I'd like to point out that UNICEF will focus and will work together with the World Food Program and our partners in the Ministry of Social Services to especially target the most vulnerable children. We will be focusing to reach at least 6,000 vulnerable children from these pre-identified households. I think that sums it up in terms of the criteria, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions or go a little bit more in detail if there are any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lazowski. Ladies and gentlemen, the Ministry of Social Services, Family and Gender Affairs is normally called the heart of the government of Dominica. And such programs, as you know, taking place on the ground is done in collaboration with the government of Dominica, and it is therefore fitting that such a program sits in the Ministry of Social Services, Family and Gender Affairs and is led by that ministry. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me pleasure to now call on the Minister to give government's policy direction on such a program, Minister Catherine Daniel, and the MP for the Collyho constituency, Honourable Catherine Daniel.
Thank you very much, Mrs. John Baptist. A pleasant good morning to all. Let me first recognize the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Social Services, Family and Gender Affairs, Mrs. Helen Roy, our friends, Marco, Alex, World Food Program people, and UNICEF people. Let me also recognize members of the media who are here, and I hope you get the message across so that it reaches where it has to reach for us. It's really a pleasure for me to be here this morning to be part of this collaborative effort between UNICEF, the World Food Program, and the Ministry of Social Services, and by extension, the government of Dominica. Government's policy has always been for the social services sector is that all vulnerable people should have a dignified life. All Dominicans should live a prosperous, peaceful, and just life. We have made sure that this has happened through our various programs that we initiate from the Social Services Ministry. We have the Yes We Care program, a brainchild of the Honorable Prime Minister, which has been in existence from 2009. We have the PAP program, Public Assistance Program, which has been in existence for a long time. We have the Foster Care Program. And all these programs are geared at reaching the most vulnerable people in our society. And government's policy is that no one should be left behind, regardless to your race, color, creed, or class. Once you're vulnerable, you should be included in that program. And so we spare no bones in reaching out to these people. And so we welcome the initiative of the World Food Program and UNICEF in coming to our rescue or aid after this catastrophic event that we had, Hurricane Maria. One of the great things of the collaboration that we have with the UNICEF and World Food is that they have extended the parameters within which we meet people and serve their, meet their needs. And so a new construct has emerged as a result. And not only are they helping those already on the public assistance program, the foster care programs, the Yes We Care program, but they have recognized that there are people, as a result of the hurricane, who have lost their livelihood. And so they have been placed in that new phase of their life where they have become vulnerable. As you said, lactating mothers. We know many people who lost their work and are now on the unemployment list. And we know many people who have lost their livelihoods, their fishing, their farming, the farming sector. A lot of people have lost their livelihoods. And that is why our Prime Minister has made it his mission to seek and obtain assistance for those in such situations. And this program, which we are launching here today, as has been explained before, will be a welcoming gesture for many people. What I would like to implore on these people, that they have been identified not to meet their wants, but that they meet their needs. And this money that they are going to receive, that they should use it wisely. It's not a lifetime assistance. You have to appreciate the period, and it's 3 months. that we are going to, that this organization, these donor organizations, the UN, for the UN agencies, are going to help us. As was explained earlier, the process of obtaining, because we had the PAP program, which the Ministry of Social Services already had, but we had new vulnerabilities. And so we had to incorporate the help of different people to identify those who were vulnerable as a result of Maria. And so we had people like the village councils from my Ministry of Social Services, Family and Gender Affairs, which I have to say thank you for your efforts, the work that you have placed in helping us identify these people, these non-PAP people, and the village councils, the chairman, the clerks, and other community members who helped in that process. I want to say thank you very, very much. I also want to thank the staff of social services, because they've been there ensuring that we get this thing started. Because it was so time-bound, limited time to capture as many people as we wanted to. And so there was a lot of pressure, quote unquote, not too much pressure, but a little pressure that we get everyone that we need to get. And so, like everything else, there might be some people we miss. But this is not the end of it. We are imploring those we miss, or those who know of those we miss, to call the hotline, because there's still room for adding more people to the list. But they have to be vulnerable people. It's not a want program, it's a need program. And so I'm employing Dominicans, if you can assist us in that process, call the hotline. You can come to the Ministry of Social Services. If you think there are people we have left out, that they fill a form and be part of that program. As you may be aware also, our Prime Minister has been, he has spared no effort in trying to seek assistance, be it for food relief, be it for housing, roads, capacity building, and all this infrastructure development. He just wants to bring a level of comfort to the lives of our people who are some of us are so, we can't cope with it, or coping mechanisms are weaker than others. And so our Prime Minister, as I said, has spared no effort in trying to seek that assistance for us. So let us, take advantage of it. Let us be thankful. Let us be appreciative of the efforts of these agencies, because they've left their countries and they are here to help us. And so we have to be appreciative of what they are doing. We have to be thankful for what they are doing for us. And so we implore on our recipients of this timely gesture to use this grant wisely. It's not a shopping spree. Please use it wisely. Because in times of, hardship, in times of situations like this, the presence of God is always there. And through these people, His faithfulness is always there. His faithfulness comes through people, through governments, through agencies. And so, because of His faithfulness, He has given that to us. And it depends on what we do with what He has given to us, that it will, it will reach and it will be used wisely. So let's just do that, people. And let's just say thank you. Thank you so much. With all our hearts to you all. World Food, UNICEF, our appreciation is beyond words. We are really, really thankful. Excuse me, I'm a bit emotional now. So I just want to say again, thank you to you all. And as you continue to work with us, we will do all. It's an open policy. Sometimes they say government mustn't be involved in things like that. But it's, the representatives for the various communities. We are interested in the people that we serve. And we will do everything to ensure that the people that we serve are recipients of this program. And we are transparent in our approach to things. And we want other people who are interviewing people to have no biases, to be transparent, and to be honest in your work in identifying people. And I just want to say thank you again. Words cannot express. And on behalf of the government of Dominica, led by the Honorable Prime Minister Roosevelt Scarrett, mucho gracias, merci beaucoup, merci autant. Thank you very, very, very much.
Questions from the media?
Okay, so at this time, we really want to say thank you, especially to the Honorable Minister and Cabinet for the approval and for her leadership in this initiative. And as she said again, World Food and UNICEF. But I just wanted to do a little promo before we start to give some guidance on the collection of the monies. Since, as the Honorable Minister said, you realize we had to put everything together very quickly. Although we send announcements, but everybody may not hear, so we just wanted to say that we are following the same method for those who are on public assistance. Wherever you received your monies before, that is the same form of payment, that is the same medium. So those who receive their monies from the village councils, they will have to check in their village councils. Now, if the monies are going to be made available to the councils today, I would want you to give them a little time. They need to come down to change it. Most of the areas, the credit unions are not functioning. And then that means to say the clerks would have to come to town, do whatever transactions. So give them some time at least before the end of the week. But for those who are accustomed of receiving the public assistance at our ministry, social services, that is available from today. And for those who ask that the money be sent to the banks or credit unions, that will be done today. Now, we also wanted to inform you that we have a deadline for those that the Honorable Minister spoke to, that is non-public assistance program list. We have a deadline of the 6th. So by the 5th, that means to say we should get all the forms, which is tomorrow is the 5th? Yes. Tomorrow is the 5th? 6th. So we have up till Wednesday. By Wednesday, we should have all the list. We have submitted the forms to all the village councils, extra forms, and we also have several forms available at the Ministry of Social Services. So if you listen to the criteria that was laid by the UNICEF and you know that you are eligible for that program, we still have space, as the Honorable Minister said. So try to see if you get your forms today signed. And they pick it up. Alex picks it up every minute he calls any more forms. So they're really working, tediously to ensure that everything goes as scheduled. So we really want to encourage people. We are going to put out the announcements. Keep listening and tell your fellow persons who are already entitled that they could start getting their money. We really want to say thank you to our district's team, the district development officers, the village councils. We have some of the areas where we had nurses working with us. We had other important persons in the communities. We really want to thank them, and the staff of Ministry of Social Services, the blunt of everything when it comes to put it together and let it work. We really want to say thank you. So that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam PS, Joseph Thomas here. I want to say thanks as well to UNICEF and the other folks for getting this program up and going. But probably I missed it somewhere. Could somebody advise me or advise as to whose initial initiative was it to get this program going? I know it's a collaborative effort, but whose initiative was it to get this program going? That is question number one. Question number two, as I look at your leaflet or your flyer, it speaks to no child under 7 years, EC $240. I don't think I quite understand that, and could that be explained further? Thank you.
Because it's 90. Let me explain. You want to do it? Yeah. No, I think I'll do it 90 years.
Yes, maybe on the second question, just maybe explain a little bit better what is the different let's say transfer that we're making. So the basis is for a household without child, it's 240 EC dollars, corresponding to $90 US. If there is a child, it's 375 per month. So it will be 3 allotments. 3. Yeah. And then if there are 2 children, it's 510 EC dollars, always per month. And if there are 3 or more children, it will be 645 EC dollars per household. That's as per the household. I don't know, PS, if you want to respond to the first one.
I think the first question that you asked, whose initiative? In a time of crisis and catastrophe, when you have people coming to help, whose initiative really isn't what really matters so much, but it's the collaborative effort of all. And as UNICEF came in, World Food Program came in to help us in this situation, they saw our need. So there was dialogue, and they identify, in what ways could they assist? And so it's a joint initiative. Thank you.
Channel 5 News, thank you for the privilege. I just wanted to find out, I don't know much about the history of this cash program, but have you had abuse of the program? For example, head of households are supposed to be using this money to care for the vulnerable children, making, other uses of that money, and the children, not necessarily the intended victims or those who really need it, not getting what they're supposed to. Have you had that sort of experience, and what's in place to deal with that?
Thank you very much. That's an excellent question. There's a lot of cash assistance during emergencies as on the rise. It's very flexible. It can reach vulnerable people very fast, and it's being used by responding agencies more and more. Of course, it's very important, as you say, to monitor how that assistance is being used, whether it's reaching the most vulnerable, whether, for example, for UNICEF, it's also very important whether assistance trickles down to children, whether outcomes for children are being also met. And let me assure you that we, UNICEF, WFP, and all the other agencies involved in this type of assistance monitor this very much, and it's also very important for us to know that cash assistance is making an impact. And all the evidence until now points out that, yes, cash is making a significant impact over the livelihoods of households affected by emergencies, a significant impact. But one of the goals that we have under this program is also to monitor how this cash program is improving the livelihoods of Dominicans. So what we, UNICEF, WFP, and the Ministry of Social Services will be doing in the next few months is monitoring how this assistance is improving the livelihoods and whether the goals that we've set for us jointly have been met. So this is also a very flexible program, and we want to make sure that we adapt as time passes so that these results are met. I don't know if my colleague wants something to add.
Yeah, very valid question. I think as World Food Program, we've been doing cash transfer over 15 years now, so we have quite experience together with UNICEF. And I think this is the reason why I think the main element to make sure that, funds are well utilized, it's always a good and valid question. It starts from the targeting. So this is why we're insisting very much with the Ministry of Social Services and with our colleagues from UNICEF and World Food Program, really insisting very much on reaching the most vulnerable, and so that it's based on criteria that are really set, and there is no too much question of they're not too much questionable. So if we have a good targeting, meaning we're reaching the ones that are more vulnerable, meaning they really need the assistance, they really need some support, it's very, in our experience, we saw that it's very limited, the misuse of funds.
And a follow-up to this, do you foresee to the extension of the program beyond 3 months?
No, I mean, this is set. It's a 3 months emergency, and this is really to help people coming back. We understand that will take a little bit longer, but usually an emergency cash transfer will be limited in time, and this is one of the principles we have to stick.
Question, would you going to comment?
I just wanted to add to what the gentleman said. Yes, it's emergency assistance is time bound. It's for 3 months only. It's very important for people to know that this is on temporary basis. But however, it's very important to know that together during this period, we're working with the Ministry of Social Services to raise the capacities of the system. So God forbid if something similar happens, the system is able to respond better, faster, and more efficient.
It's mainly for the Honorable Minister. The thing is, what I've understood from what you've said is that there are people who were not on the public assistance program who would now, it's like you're casting a wider net to include these people. Do you foresee, I mean, hopefully, well, I guess the hope is that some people will once again hopefully be working again within the next 3 months perhaps. But if it turns out that some of these people, things have not improved for them, do you foresee some of these people transitioning onto public assistance, or although this is not what you would want to promote, but what would happen in a scenario like this?
As you may be aware, on the list that you have, there's a criteria from the non-PAP people that will pregnant people, lactating mothers, people who have lost their livelihoods as a result. So we don't expect people to remain unemployed for a long period. So it's not a transition to the public assistance program, because what, as the government, our policy is not to keep people on these programs. We'd like to see people move on in life. We'd like to see people sustain themselves. We want to make life better for everyone. And so as we create the environment to attain those goals, self-sufficiency, that we'd like to reduce the PAP program, really. So extending it now, it wouldn't be, it's not the best option. But that doesn't miss out the fact that if we have to help people who remain, we can do it on a case-by-case basis. Because the aim of this government is to ensure that its people, have a decent life, live a life of integrity. And so we can go now from a case-by-case basis. But this is a great stepping stone for those. And that's why we implore people to use it wisely, put it aside, because you never know what the future holds.
I just want to wrap up with my questions and pass the mic on. Okay. I just wanted to ask you this, because in October, I think the Environmental Health Department did a study, I believe, at the grotto, and they found out that basically the facility there is no longer suitable for habitation and so on. They found a list of challenges there, but one of them was that the people there had not been receiving supplies. I am not sure to what extent, you are aware of anything to that extent. I know it doesn't have specifically to do with this issue now, but as you are here, I'm taking the opportunity to ask, how would something like this happen? How would they be missed?
There's a saying which goes, believe none of what you hear, half of what you see. And I personally have visited the grotto on numerous occasions since after Maria, and they have been receiving supplies. They receive supplies from government. They have agencies who go, and this is another vulnerable group, and the agencies go there and they get stuff for these people. So they've been cared for. They get a subvention from the government. So they're taken care of. So as far as I'm aware, they are taken care of. I've been there, I've brought stuff myself, even individual stuff for people. And I know the grotto people, it's, they're really, really vulnerable. As you know, we had this new facility for them up at Belverol, but with Maria, people ran for rescue everywhere, and so people occupy the space that's there. But we are in the process of moving them to their new homes shortly, so that they'll have a decent life. But they are taken care of, they're not forgotten. Thank you.
Final question to you is really the concern that the welfare division raised sometime following the storm of protecting children in the shelters and so on. Is that still a concern for your ministry?
Reduced slightly, but it's still a concern. We've spared no efforts in trying to address it. We've changed managers where the need arose for us to change managers, and so we're doing all what is humanly possible to ensure that this does not happen. And as you say that, we implore to the parents, please protect your children. Do not leave them alone, because this is a situation where, you know, people are in a chaotic, by now they should be settling down. But then that's not the time to just trust anyone, to leave your children with anyone. And so parents must continue, guardians must continue to ensure that their children are well protected, they know their whereabouts, they know, you know, and that they're taken care of. And Ministry of Social Services, through our Child Protection Unit, we are really doing what is humanly possible to ensure that we have no cases of that nature. But the world is, you know, round, not flat. Thanks.
At this time, I will simply thank everyone for their participation, for their collaboration with the government of Dominica, UNICEF, the World Food Programme. Let me also thank the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Social Services, Family and Gender Affairs, Helen Royer, and last but not least, the Minister responsible for that ministry and the MP for the Cawley constituency, Honourable Catherine Daniel. Thank you for your work. Thank you all, ladies and gentlemen, and have a great day.